Okay, so that's a great question. So the question is, how important is preheating the portafilter? So the good news is that there's an answer, and the answer is that temperature chart. If you look at the temperature chart after you make an espresso and it starts really low and climbs up, there's a good chance the problem is that your portafilter was cold or your grounds were cold. Right, so we're putting hot water into the beans. The beans are room temperature. We want to bring the infusion temperature up, so we put hotter water in. But if the portafilter is quite cold, that's going to prevent that. Now, that being said, let me get a towel. So here's a portafilter and a basket, right? This one's brand new, so it's stiff spitting. This is not a lot of heat mass, right? And it's barely touching a portafilter via a spring. So the metal of the portafilter is barely touching this. So when you're heating the portafilter, you're largely actually heating the basket. So my recommendation, first of all, would be if your basket's cold, put the portafilter in and do the flush for 5 seconds and just let it sit. After you do that, your basket's going to be really nice and hot. There's what other people teach you, but other people might disagree. My feeling is that if your infusion temperature is rock solid and where you want to be, you don't have a problem. I don't know if other people agree with that or not.
Yeah, look, I'll just jump in with some thoughts. It's not something that I've really tested a lot or anything like that. It is something that, you know, like as John says, I just look at the graph and I taste the espresso. I've been using the blooming espresso shot a lot where at the first stage, the water is fed in too high. So that may be something that kind of changes things around. But I suppose the other thing is when people talk about preheating a portafilter, they're talking about this. And I don't know if part of the idea of preheating it is to get everything down here preheated to stop your espresso running over something that's, you know, that's cold, yeah, super cold.
Yeah.
Whereas we've got bottomless portafilters, so we don't have the spout inside problem.
So what I can say is someone who's pulled a lot of bottomless shots on like a La Marzocco is that if someone does come and wash it out and then you use it immediately, you get quite a bit of inconsistency in your numbers and your grind setting. Like you would have to go, I forget if it's finer or coarser, but it does change things pretty drastically because the water temperature ends up being lower in some parts of the puck or something like that.
So the decent group head is quite different from anybody else's in that we have thermally isolated the group. So when you...
No, I agree, yeah.
So the heater comes in and then there's a piece of fiberglass that's like 3 mils thick. Right. So the portafilter body does not actually physically connect to anything in the water path that's heated. Like it's separated. The water goes right into here through heated metal. So if you throw a double spout portafilter onto a group and the group is all thermally connected, then yeah, you're going to destabilize it. But that's not the case for us.
Yeah, although I am comparing it to a machine with like a 5,000 watt boiler, like, or a fairly large coffee boiler, separate cut, whatever. Their whole fully saturated group design. So I don't know if that would be pretty thermally stable already compared to the portafilter.
I think the problem is those machines are not responsive, right? It isn't like there's a temperature probe.
No, absolutely. Yeah, they're not probing at the group, so you can drain the group's temperature decently low, and it wouldn't react right away. There's nothing it can really do.
So it might be that they're completely stable if you act the way they're expecting you to, which is keeping them locked in.
Yeah. Again, that's why I said I tested it on their machine. I haven't tested it on the Decent, really. I have noticed that I get a pretty big temperature drop on mine if I start pulling shots too early or like the first shot of the day. Haven't exactly figured that out. If that's just like the tank hasn't fully heated up to a certain temperature. If you just let it sit, it does heat up to a certain temperature.
So are you using the bottomless or spouted?
Oh, no, it's it's the bottomless. It's just the stock portafilter.
Okay. And is it locked in while the machine's heating up?
I leave it barely sitting twisted so it just holds on. So it's not like pushing up against the gasket, but it's just kind of hanging there.
Yeah, maybe just slightly tighten it more.
Yeah, that's an idea.
You feel the bite of the rubber.
Well, I think like if I feel it, it's somewhat uncomfortably hot. So it's not like it's not heating up itself.
I don't know.
What is the coffee temperature thing on the graph actually measuring? Is it a probe in the head there?
Yeah, if Luca brings out the parts.
I mean, he's holding what looks like the group head, like manifold thing.
So.
Okay, so you're asking where the probe is. That orange cable on the left?
Yeah.
That is a temperature probe that goes all the way down, and there's holes cut in each of the parts. And then that ends up about 1 millimeter behind the shower screen. So.
Oh, okay. I haven't taken it off, so I haven't. Okay.
Yeah, so when you take the shower screen off, you're going to see that temperature probe right there.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, let's say, 2 mils above the puck.
Yep.
So it's obviously not touching the coffee because then it would cause channeling.
No, clearly, yeah.
But
it's about as close as you can get, I think.
The mix. The temperature probe that's opposite there from Luca is the water going in. There you go. You can see it shining.